as I walk through the streets and lanes of my hometown.
What is it that compels us family historians to travel back to the land of our ancestors? Iris drove me into Ketch Harbour and my heart soared. I was here on the old road my ancestors traveled for 250 years. Would my cousins who inherited the land welcome me and my camera? Could we find the actual location of the old homestead? This map shows Peter's Ketch Harbour grants from 1766. Many of Peter's descendants from his 3 wives and 11 children still live here today. This map shows where 5 generations of my ancestors were born, including Vera and Adele. According to the 1891 census, Richard Martin and Ruth Ann Connors lived next door to their son Richard and Adeline, with daughters Vera 4 and Adele 4 months. I still get emotional when I read that, and I'm sure there are many of you who know what I'm talking about. Sean Martin is my closest Martin relative so far. I finally got to meet him on what is believed to be the original homestead property.
Yeah, this is where the old foundation would have been, running right along here, right up along the flat area.
It said in the census in 1891 that they lived next door to their father, Richard and Ruth, and if this was Richard and Ruth, then they lived next door, so they were either on that side over there, or they were on this side over here.
Charles R. Martin's father's house, Richard Martin, and then this house here was Charles R. Martin's house.
Sean had a surprise for me. Peter's original 1766 land grant, signed by none other than Charles Morris. There was a Catholic church here where the cemetery still stands on Peter's original land grant. Here is Daniel, John's son, and Ruth Ann Connors, my great-great-great-grandmother. The Connors were a large family in this area, and I've yet to sort them out. I believe that Peter and John are probably here, as it would cost nothing to bury them on their own land, and that may be why the cemetery was here before the church was, and I think this is exactly where they would have wanted to be. A post office was established here in 1853. This is Sarah Connors Fleming in front of her house, which was replaced by this one, which became the post office. She could probably be a relative as well. The old one-room schoolhouse was up around here on the old school road. It is long gone now, but Iris gave me the biggest thrill of this adventure when she sent me this picture of the Ketch Harbour school children in 1896. If they were still living here, Vera would have been 9 years old and Adele would have been 6. Vera and Adele were extremely close all their lives until Vera died in Toronto in 1965 watching her hockey night in Canada. I can't help but assume that if they are in this picture, they would be sitting together, and I am drawn to these 2 little girls. They seem to have the eyes. And there's the curly hair of my great-great-grandmother Vera on the right. In June of 1771, the widow Margaret Butler takes in Peter's eldest son John. The next year, Peter is a widower with 6 children. The year after that, Margaret started a lawsuit claiming she was never paid for John's 3 years of room and board that continued until Peter's death 15 years later. In that same month of June in 1771, she had also become his business partner, entering into a shared license to occupy a wharf, which I believe later became Butler's Wharf, and 15 feet of the Halifax waterfront to sell fish. I can't help but feel the wrath of a woman scorned here. Could there have been something else to their relationship? In 1788, during the last few months of Peter's life, he won a suit against Thomas Tillery, who was found sober enough when he entered into an agreement with Peter, and it was settled in April. Also in April, a Samuel Bowden swore in open court that he had sent a notice to Peter to attend a meeting with the arbitrators that were assigned to referee his case against Peter that started back in '85 when he accused Peter of not paying him for fish he caught while in his service. But Peter refused to attend. On October 8th, Peter lost the case and was ordered to pay Bowden £9, 3 shillings and 3 pence, plus all court costs. By October 23rd, 15 days later, Peter Martin's estate was in probate.
I can hear the ghost on the streets and lanes of my hometown, from the stories my grandmother told me.
Danny Martin has been helping me since the beginning and offered me his original song, The Streets of My Hometown, recorded with his band Salsa Picante for my series. And he had a surprise for me at Ketch Harbour.
Here's Peter Martin, I found him. He was here at Ketch Harbour all along, and I've been looking for 8 years.
This is my second life.
Yeah, he came back just for me. This is so good. I found him. So, but you're descended from John, and then Where did you say it was, John?
Daniel
Danny?
Senior, Daniel Junior.
Yeah, Daniel Senior, Daniel Junior, then Thomas,
Thomas.
Oh.
then Fred,
And Fred.
his dad, then him, and I'm instead of Fred,
Fred.
I'm Frank, then Dan.
Okay.
So Daniel, Thomas, Frank, Dan. Daniel, Thomas, Fred. Peter.
Peter.
There
Okay.
you go.
That's it.
I descend from the women.
So we're related, is that what you're telling me?
Yes, I'm Peter, John, Daniel, Richard and Ruth Ann Connors, then Richard D. and Adeline Martin, and then their daughter Vera.
I had to leave my beautiful cousins in Ketch Harbour as I'm off to the fortress of Louisbourg, where I found a Peter Martin there in 1760.
On the streets of my